From To Keto LLC, it's Keto Woman Podcast with Daisy Brackenhall.
Hello Keto lovelies, I'm Daisy Brackenhall, and I've spent most of my life struggling with my weight and confidence, and have always had a difficult relationship with food. Even when I finally got to my target weight after weight loss surgery and eating low carb, I couldn't maintain it and I was miserable. Keto has given me the freedom to fall in love with food again, without the constant gain, loss, guilt, virtue cycle of before. Health and happiness is where it's at now, running on fat. Welcome to the Keto Woman Podcast. Each week I'll be chatting to inspirational women, maybe even the odd man, to discover the secrets to their success so that I can share them with you. So what is keto? Keto is a way of eating that enables you to switch your body's main fuel source from sugar to fat. Who doesn't want to be a fat burner, right? But how do we achieve this? A great place to start is by keeping carbs to 20 grams or less per day. So things like leafy greens and above ground vegetables, plus some nuts and seeds and the incidental carbs you find in things like dairy. Moderate protein scaled to your lean body mass, and then fat to satiety. Once you're in the swing of things, you can tweak it to suit you. Make your own personalised keto. I'll be asking my guests each week what their keto looks like to show you just how flexible and fabulous this way of eating can be. I'm not a doctor, and most of my guests won't be either, so we can't give you medical advice. It's always best to work with your own doctor because they know you and your medical history and so have access to the bigger picture. Thanks, Emily Borden, for supporting me and this podcast by making a pledge at my Patreon page. Do you want to hear your name here at the top of the show? Are you enjoying this podcast and would like to help me make more episodes? Then head to my Patreon page at patreon.com/KetoWoman or hit the support button on the Keto Woman Podcast website. It means a great deal to me and you will get to headline the show just like Emily did today. This week's extraordinary woman is actually two extraordinary dudes. The two keto dudes, Richard Morris and Carl Franklin. I've asked them to come on the show to talk about Keto Fest. Imagine spending a weekend with hundreds of other low-carbers in a coastal New England town turned keto. Within 4 blocks, you will interact with world-class speakers, patronise local restaurants serving real keto dishes, attend a pig roast where you don't have to worry about sugar in the sauce, learn how to cook your own keto dishes, attend talks on various keto-related topics, take fat-adapted fitness classes, and network with other ketogenic warriors. What's not to love about that? I really hope to see some of you there this July, and I've started building up my hug muscles in preparation for just that. Welcome to the Keto Woman Podcast. We've got two special keto dudes here today, Richard Morris and Carl Franklin.
Hello.
Hi, Daisy.
How are you doing?
We're doing great.
Doing awesome.
Now, most of my listeners are going to know pretty well all about you, but why don't you just share a quick bit in an introduction?
So I'm Richard, and I'm the one with the Australian accent. You often see me wearing the silly orange hat. I went ketogenic in 2014, and I've been ketogenic now almost 4 years. I was talking about my ketogenic diet and how I'd reversed my diabetes on Facebook, and my buddy Carl Franklin said,
I want a piece of that.
He sure did.
Yeah, I saw that, and I'd been half-assing low carb for a long time and gave myself diabetes. And when it was time to get serious about it and lose some weight and become healthy, he's the one that I went to because I knew that he had done it right and he had done the science and it worked. And our mutual friend, Mark Miller, had just got a diagnosis of prostate cancer, and he was doing the ketogenic diet to control that tumor. And he had decided to do it, and Karen and Mark were friends of mine and local, and they were both doing it. So I said, you know what? You're in, I'm in. let's do this. And then I called up Richard and asked him for some advice, and that turned into a podcast.
It did.
Yeah.
It was originally only intended to be a commitment device for Carl to sort of stick him to the diet and to make sure that Carl's been podcasting since 2002. So that's like, 2 years before the term podcast existed.
Yeah, that's right.
And we figured that, if he was doing a podcast about it, he'd have to stick to it. And it worked. And we thought there'd be just like 100 people would be interested in this thing. And maybe, 1 or 2 diabetics. And if we help somebody else out along the way, how awesome would that be? And, now, I was only going to do like a dozen podcasts, and now we've been doing it for 2 years. We've had, I guess, how many total downloads? It's probably a million.
Millions and millions.
Downloads.
Yeah.
And, we hear from diabetics every day who tell us that they've reversed the progression of their disease.
Yep.
It's an honour to do this.
It's incredible. And what episode are you at now? You're at 100 and something, isn't it?
I think 108.
Yeah, 108.
Yeah.
108.
Yeah.
Wow. I've spoken about it before with a couple of guests, actually, and so many people I speak to who talk about the way they got into keto was through your podcast.
Wow.
And I think it's a great place to send people, though, because of that great combination. You've got someone who's been doing it for a while, and you've got someone who's just starting. That's when you start back at episode 1. That's a great place.
And you've got Lewis
exactly. But it's great, isn't it? Because people can then follow along, and they can literally listen to it as they're starting it themselves and go week by week along with you two guys and hear about all the problems and the highs and the lows as you go.
we don't hide the warts, that's for sure.
Warts and all.
Yeah, we have errata every episode, which reminds me, we have an errata for our next show. It turns out that there's no such thing as non-assless chaps. So all chaps are assless. So
sorry,
that will have to be the errata for the next episode.
That's redundant.
It's funny you should say that, because I asked in my KKB Facebook group if they had any questions for you guys, because I said I'd be talking to you. And one of them, funnily enough, from Tamara Jo Palmer, she wants to know when you will be offering those 2KD arseless chaps. So I guess they have to check on your merch page, right?
Yeah.
It was just
gear.2keto.com.
It was something that you didn't think was going to stay in the show when you said it. We were just having a good laugh, and then I thought, well, why not? Let's leave it in there.
Yeah. Sure.
Yeah, what's it called when you do? Is it an oxymoron, or is that the opposite of that?
What'd you call me?
Chaps, when you're when you're describing what's already there.
Oh, it's redundant. Yeah.
Another question, which I think would be a great time to ask it, is from Claire Clark, one of our admins.
Hello, Claire. Yeah.
Where and when did you meet?
Wow.
We met in Orlando. We were at a computer conference, and Mark Miller worked for me at the time, and he came up to me and he said, my friend Carl Franklin wants to take me to IHOP for pancakes. I've got to go to pancakes. I must have pancakes.
Yeah.
Mark's a little bit intense that way. And so I said, oh, that sounds good. Let's go get some pancakes. And Carl took us to IHOP for pancakes. So we met over a dish of carbohydrates.
Yes.
So that must have been quite a while ago then.
Yeah. What was that? In the 2002? 2004 maybe?
2002. Yeah.
Somewhere
in that
in
era.
there.
So, yeah. So we've known each other. I mean, I think Carl was doing his podcast, so it must have been 2004, I think, because he was well known amongst the VB community. And I was running a software company. I was the public executive for a software company out of Las Vegas. And we both used to speak at conferences a lot. So, public presentations not an issue.
I remember attending a session that you did on your tools, that you had a lot of speakers and MVPs attend, and you invited.
Right.
You guys did. And you were talking about your grids and your software tools. I do remember that.
Wow. Oh, there you go. So that's where we met.
So 2 software dudes become 2 keto dudes.
Yeah. First of all, we became 2 diabetic dudes.
Yes.
Yeah. The bit in between.
Yeah. And they're not necessarily related, but, there are a lot of people in the software industry who are sedentary and, eat a high carbohydrate diet. I mean, in Silicon Valley, sodas are free and pizzas are free for most companies. And, you're expected to stay long hours and work long hours. And I mean, for about 20 years, I survived on 4.5 hours sleep a night. And that's also one of the things that causes, the cascade of metabolic syndrome is shortchanging yourself on sleep. But for me, being able to sleep for 4.5 hours and be functional, extremely functional, meant that I had a 3.5 hour head start on all of my competitors. So I was able to do more coding in that during the day. And unfortunately, do that for 20 years and something's going to fall loose. And in my case, it was my glycemic control.
So I got to tell you, this other podcast that I've been doing since 2002 is called .NET Rocks. And .NET is a Microsoft technology. It used to be a programming platform just for Windows and servers, websites. But now it's a complete open source, runs everywhere, runs on Linux, runs on the Mac. It runs on Android phones and iPhones and everything else. But that's not important. What's important is that when we launched to Keto Dudes, I mentioned it a couple of times on .NET Rocks, and a lot of my listeners who were also diabetic and overweight, went over and started listening to it. And this year, I just got back. After Breckenridge, I went to an MVP summit, which you don't really need to know what that is, but just suffice to say that a whole lot of people that listen to .NET Rocks, both that work at Microsoft and who don't, are there. And this year, I was bombarded by people telling me they had either lost significant amounts of weight by listening to the show or completely reversed diabetes, or both. It was unbelievable. The number of people that came up to me saying, "You saved my life," was just remarkable.
That's brilliant. You must have been on a complete high.
It was amazing.
The whole thing. Yeah.
It's an honor to hear this. I mean, really, we're changing people's lives, all of us. I mean, I'm not talking about just Carl and I. I'm talking about the entire ketogenic community.
That's for
everybody
sure.
who was at Low Carb Breckenridge last week.
Yep.
There are people there who they may have slight disagreements with each other about the nuances of what they're doing.
Right.
For the most part, every single person there is changing other people's lives. And even if they're just, a physician attending, half the attendees were physicians, they're all going to come in contact with 10,000 people in a year with an opportunity to change their lives.
Yeah.
And then, the attendees, just regular patients who are diabetic who live in Colorado and decided to go to this conference, each of them is going to come into contact with, hundreds, if not thousands of people over the next year in a random conversation talking about how they managed to turn their type 2 diabetes around, and it will influence somebody else to take the same intervention. And it's remarkable.
Yeah.
This thing is not going to stop. It is only going to get bigger, and we are going to change the world.
I must admit, I've found it easier just in the time that I've been keto, that with it just becoming a bit more mainstream and a bit more well known, there have been a few celebrities who started dabbling it and things like that.
Yeah.
But you sound a little bit less like a crazy person when you're, because we do tend to get a bit evangelical about it, don't we? And anytime anyone mentions any kind of ailment, you're the person who says, I know what will help with that.
It's almost embarrassing, as Richard says, how the spoils of being ketogenic, But I look at it as this, in the keto world, we talk about a lot of things, but mostly we talk about obesity and diabetes. But, that's just our corner of it, Richard's and mine, because that's what we know. And people tend to be skeptical, people tend to say, this is just the latest fad diet. And, you kind of have that personality, Carl, that you sort of glom onto things when they're hot and, talk about them a lot and evangelize. And it's not keto, the word, it's science. We're trying to unpack the science behind what happens when you reduce carbs and increase fat.
Exactly. And it must be nice, though, I was watching you guys at Low Carb Breckenridge. It must be nice to be surrounded by pretty well completely like-minded people for a change. So you're not the odd person in the room anymore. Everyone's looking at you strangely because you're talking about eating loads of fat. So it must be nice to be in that environment.
Yeah, that actually leads us to an interesting topic, and that's Keto Fest, which is a festival that we put on every year in Connecticut. And one of the big things about Keto Fest last year was the first year we did it. We had people coming up to us in tears because they went out for dinner on Saturday night at the end of Social Saturday. And we had set up all of the restaurants in downtown New London to be able to do ketogenic fare. There was Hot Rods was selling a pint of bacon
as an appetizer.
Yeah, Daddy Jack's was doing Carl's Head Pizza. There was another place doing pizzas, just the top of a pizza on a plate. And there was just ketogenic meals. All of the wait staff in all of the restaurants knew what to expect, knew how to help people sort of to ketify any meal on their menus. And people came out of that experience having, for the first time in their life, been one of many in a room all doing the same thing rather than being the one weirdo who eats, butter with their fish,
Oh, we got to talk about the Thai chef, right? Because there's a local Thai restaurant called Bangkok City. And I really wanted these guys to do shirataki noodle pad thai.
Pad thai.
Right. I can see that working well, actually. Yeah.
Yeah. So I talked to the chef and he was a little skeptical, but he said, okay. And I brought in some, bag of shirataki noodles and I printed out the recipe and told him, try it. And I did write on the recipe sheet, you really need to rinse these things and, get the smell off them and all that and rinse them, maybe nuke them a couple of times, rinse them. And, but the first time he did it, he said, they didn't come out all that well. They don't smell all that good. And they're kind of slippery and all that. And I said, no, you have to rinse them a couple of times and dry them off really well before you put them, mix them in. He said, okay, I'll try again. And then he was like, this is the best noodle for Thai. Shirataki noodles are the best noodles because they don't disintegrate when you soak them in the sauce.
Yeah, they hold up overnight. Yeah.
He was ecstatic. Perfect. And then he says, you know what? Yeah. Let me make something special for you. And he goes in the kitchen and he puts the dish together with shirataki noodles and something completely different. And he brings it out for us. Remember that? He was
Crying Tiger.
Yeah, it was amazing.
Delicious.
Well, that sounds nice. Tell me more about that.
Oh, it was just a very spicy, peppery meal. I guess traditionally...
hence the crying bit.
Yeah, exactly. I think traditionally any meal that is dragon is based on snake. Any meal that is tiger is sadly... I think this was chicken. Hopefully it was chicken.
Yeah.
But phoenix as well. Phoenix is often chicken.
Yeah. They don't serve snake here, but they do serve lobster. So dragon's typically lobster in Asian food.
Oh, right. Okay. Yeah. Cool.
I'll take that.
Yeah.
I tell me more about your description of Keto Fest.
Oh, sure.
Because I mean, all the low carb conferences, they're fantastic. Yes. And they always have a huge array of speakers, and it really sounds good from an educational point of view. But I must admit, I'm a bit like Carl. I prefer the extra stuff, the in-between stuff in a way, or certainly to have it with it. So tell me a bit about your idea behind Keto Fest, because it's something a bit special and different.
Sure.
Well, it was Carl's idea.
Yeah, I think I called you up in the middle of my night. It must have been your morning, and I was at a software conference, and I've been going to and speaking at software conferences for years and years and years. And like you were saying, Daisy, my favorite part of a conference is what happens in the hallway. And what happens at the before parties and after parties, where you get to actually have conversations with customers and with other speakers, and in the speakers lounge, just talking about stuff, just sitting and chatting. So, so the idea was that I wanted to do a low carb conference that was more of a festival. And I say this in the ad copy or whatever. Conferences are for professionals and festivals are for people, right?
Yeah.
So I wanted to make it have a social day and a science day. So we do social Saturday, and that's all pig roast and exercise lessons and walking tours of the town, Segway tours of the town, cooking demonstrations, wine and cheese tasting. This year we're going to have, we want to have somebody doing a cheese making class all day.
Yeah.
That you can step in on.
I bet I know who that is. That'll be Pamela Zorn.
Pamela Zorn, yeah. Yeah, we want to have her and Ron, her husband, come and do that and teach cheese making. And then at the end of the day, we let them loose on the town. As Richard said, we got as many restaurants as we could to participate and put some ketogenic fare on their menu. And we had movies last year, but we found that was a little too much. Not a lot of people came to the movies, and it kind of put a little pressure on the restaurants to feed everybody in a short window of time. So we're probably not going to do that. But then Science Sunday, of course, is what you expect from a conference. It's the talks. It's the, Eric Westman, Ivor Cummins, Amber O'Hearn, Dave Feldman, Nick Mailer, Jackie Eberstein, Dr. Gerber, this Richard Feinstein. Great talks. And at the same time, we're serving bacon all day on Science Sunday.
The bacon bar. Yeah.
And didn't you have toasted cheese sandwiches?
Yeah, right. And that was so good.
You better have those again.
Yeah, Julie says she's coming from Fox Hill. She's going to come again and do that.
And you're talking about this year, aren't you, having more lectures in 2 different venues, so people have even more choice. Is that right?
Yeah, that's right. So what we plan to do is we've got a second venue at the ballroom where we can actually we can put another screen up and have another audience. What we're planning to do is to have a practical demonstrations and theoretical presentations going on at the same time. So if you tend towards the more practical, you can go to the ballroom and you can hear practical demonstrations of how to do a ketogenic diet or how to fast safely and adequately. And if you want to more the technical stuff, you can go hear
research.
A lead researcher talk about their research into the ketogenic diets or fasting. So it's 2 different streams, and of course we've got speaking of streaming, we've got live streaming, so everybody who comes to the event can see the ones that they missed, either at the moment or download it later on.
Yep.
So it's going to be interesting because it gives people more options, and
and presumably you can jump between the 2 as well, can't you? Didn't you say to me that they're quite close together, so you can pick and choose as well?
Yeah, it's only a block away. So you can go from one to the other without a problem. And the other thing that we're doing, as I say, we're doing the cheese making demonstrations, but we've also expanded the kitchen that we did our kitchen demonstrations with. If you came in 2017, it was quite claustrophobic because the venue did a lot of things other than just be a test kitchen. Well, they've totally renovated that now, and it's only doing kitchen work, which is going to be great.
It's a production kitchen and a demo kitchen in the same space. The back of what was the Spark Maker space is now a complete production kitchen with multiple stations, ovens, freezers, refrigerators, sous vide, meat slicer, like all the stuff that you need to do, to cater major events. So the production is going to be happening for every demonstration that we do. Last time we had to limit it to like 40 covers for each dish, just because that's about what was practical,
Yeah.
This time, the staff is going to be doing the covers for everybody in that production kitchen.
Oh, great. So everyone can try some.
Yeah, and the presenter only has to show how to make the food. They don't actually have to make all 40 covers or
great. They haven't got to worry about making the whole lot. And so you have all these things going on Social Saturday. So people presumably can sort of wander in and out and pick and choose from all sorts of different things.
Yeah, that's the whole idea. You can just sort of wander around if you can be social. That's the idea.
Yep.
And it's great. And you're not, and you've got the whole town pretty much to do it in. You're not limited to a conference centre.
Right.
So you can really wander around and communicate with people. And it sounds
And the mayor's
fantastic.
been a great help. People in the town, the business owners, they love it. I mean, they talk about it all year round.
I bet.
We're going to have a band on the parade ground, so a live band playing for several hours.
Yep.
We're going to have all the food on the parade ground as well, plus the kitchen demos, plus the cheese making demos, lots of tours. It's going to be that just Social Saturday is unique amongst all the ketogenic conferences, so nobody else does anything like that. So
Right.
It completely is. I think that's what makes it so special.
There's one other thing we didn't talk about, which is the VIP party.
Yeah.
I was just going to ask you about that because they're the most popular tickets, aren't they? They're the ones that sell first.
Yes, they are. Yeah.
They're the ones that go first.
So yeah, tell us about that.
Well, that's we should start with Fasting Friday before we talk, because both things happen on Friday.
Yeah.
So this year we're doing something new on Friday before Keto Fest, essentially, which is Fasting Friday. Megan Ramos from IDM, of course, you all know who she is.
Yeah.
She is coming down to host it, and she's going to do presentations.
Is she bringing Hyde? That's all I
the
want
dog?
to know.
Yeah. I don't know.
Oh, is he
I don't
coming?
know.
Oh, I can't wait.
They've got another
Gorgeous
dog
greyhound.
now, too. I think they have two.
Really?
Yeah, I think that's what Angel was telling me. But anyway, so they're going to be talking about, their research in fasting, but also just coordinating events that don't have anything to do with food, right? So there's going to be, checker and chess boards and card games and board games and, people who want to do yoga.
Board games. Nobody told me there'd be board games.
Board games. Yeah. Plenty of water and salt. And outdoor activities as well. Like we might get the walking tours and the Segway tours going on Friday as well. I don't know. Have to talk to them and see if that's available. Organize a run down to the beach and back, or a walk down to the beach and back, which is about, 5 miles, something like that.
Great idea.
And the good thing about a fasting fest is we don't have to cater anything. Water and salt. Well, it's going to be free.
Yeah.
All you have to do is have a Keto Fest ticket.
Yeah, that's
You'll be
it.
able to go to Fasting Fest. Yeah.
It's a great add-on, isn't it, for people who want to get there a bit early?
Yeah.
So the party is the thing that sells out first. The VIP ticket includes access to a big party at my house on Friday night, and all the speakers are coming. Everybody gets to sort of hobnob with the speakers. It was a huge hit last year. Richard and I do the cooking for that.
We do.
I made clam chowder, and we both made sous vide 48-hour chuck roast.
Yeah.
In big
And cabbage.
Coleman coolers. And Richard did Julie's German cabbage, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Big old pot of cabbage.
It was great.
It was a great event. Louise and I both smuggled in cases of Australian zero-carb beer that we gave away for free.
Yeah, that beer was pretty good.
Yeah, it wasn't bad. It was drinkable, It was tastes like beer.
Burley
And
Big
it's
Head beer.
Zero carb. Burley Big Head beer.
Yep.
So that's the VIP event. And the only way to get those tickets is to be part of the Kickstarter.
Right.
The whole reason we did the Kickstarter thing was because a big event like this, getting 300 or 400 people into town and making a wonderful event for them costs a lot of money, and it's quite high risk. And so Kickstarter, what it does for us is we basically sell the tickets on Kickstarter. We still sell tickets after the Kickstarter has happened, but at least we know it's going to happen. It's going to go ahead because we have met our minimum financial requirement to be able to put the event on. We have an exclusive for Daisy's show. We have an extraordinary keto woman who has told us if we get kickstarted, she will come and present.
Who could that be now?
Who could that be? I'm so excited. Tell me,
Daisy. It's you.
And it's also Nina Teicholz.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Nina Teicholz is coming.
Yeah. And Ivor has told us if we get kickstarted, He's going to come as well.
Yep.
So, this is why it's important for everybody to kickstart Keto Fest, because what'll happen is, if we don't make our numbers, then you get all your money back.
Right.
We don't have the event.
Right.
If we do make your numbers, you get to go to an awesome keto event. So it's a win-win.
Yeah.
It's a great way of raising money, actually, isn't it? Because, like you say, there's just no risk for anybody involved.
The other thing that I need to mention is at the VIP party this year. Last year I made clam chowder. This year, lobster bisque.
Oh yeah.
And the chefs are making the clam chowder to be served on Social Saturday in the parade.
Nice. Yeah.
Yeah. And I seem to remember seeing a video of the VIP party ending last year with a bit of a jamming session.
Yes, that's right. Eric Westman on keyboards, me on guitar, and Richard sang a song too.
I did. Yeah, so Eric Westman is really quite a good piano player.
Yeah, he is. Yeah, we had fun. Unfortunately, we had a little too much fun, a little too late. I ended up staying up all night because I had last-minute software to write to get everybody. I think I was writing the door software for the Spark Makerspace for the cooking demonstrations.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm just not going to wait.
Yeah, I was doing my prep for it because I did 6 recipes in 30 minutes.
Man.
I did pulled beef 6 ways for 40 people. 40
That's crazy.
In 30 minutes. What kind of idiot does that? Anyway, now I think this year what I might do is I might do the recipe that I did in Breckenridge, which was sous vide salmon with fennel salad.
Yeah.
I think that's the recipe I'll do this year.
I think I'm going to give my spot to somebody else. Because if you're coming to the VIP party, you'll taste my food.
I like the sound of fennel salad. I was reading about that on your blog the other
so
day.
good.
And yeah, I make fennel salad. It's nice, isn't
very
it?
nice.
It's an interesting flavour.
Yeah.
Well, it sounds great. And we've talked about Keto Fest and we've talked about the Kickstarter, but where do people go to find it and buy their tickets?
KetoFest.com, KETOFEST.com.
And there you go. And you can choose from a different range of tickets, from the VIP down to you can just go for one day if you want to, can't you?
You can go for just one day, yeah, and you get to pick which one it is. And you can also buy more than one ticket. You just need to send us a message and tell us how you want your pledge divvied up.
You could also, if you can't make it to Keto Fest itself, but you just want to be part of the people who believed in the whole concept and got it happening, you can always just get a T-shirt. So the T-shirts last year said Keto Fest co-founder. In fact, I'm wearing one right now, but it's
yeah, I should have worn mine at the same time.
So we just wanted to reward people with the idea that, everybody who sponsored Keto Fest last year on Kickstarter equally helped us co-found the whole concept.
Right.
And we're very grateful to those people, and so it was the least we could do. I'm not sure what the T-shirt will say this year.
I'm not sure
it'll
either.
Be something similar.
Yeah, we'll have to figure that out.
Maybe I brought Keto Fest back to New London, or I don't know. We'll see.
Yeah. There's another thing that's going to happen here in New London, which is a sort of a mini Keto Fest once a month. And what I mean by mini Keto Fest is just a one-day cooking, food, and science, all at what was the Spark Makerspace kitchen and now is called RD86, all at that space. And for science, what we're going to do is pick a topic for each month and find YouTube videos of lectures, maybe from Keto Fest actually, that but other things by the people that speak at Keto Fest and those who don't, and watch it, and then actually do a Skype call with the expert.
Yeah, one of the reasons we did Keto Fest the way that we did was Carl really wanted to turn his hometown ketogenic, not just for the weekend, which is what Keto Fest does, but he wanted to have a lasting legacy in his hometown. So that one of the things that we did was we told people, if you're keto and you're local and you want to get your primary care physician some information, bring them along to Science Sunday and we'll let them in for free. And there's a limited number of tickets that we had, but the idea was it was no cost to the physician to come and sit with you and listen to some of the presentations and potentially advise you how those presentations should affect your treatment. Right. So that was one of the things. And by doing these mini Keto Fests sort of every month, Carl's trying to sort of leverage the idea of the once a year Keto Fest to build a community of people in New London who are ketogenic.
We're also offering to pay for ServSafe certified food manager certification for 10 local people who offer to help serve food at Keto Fest, because that's kind of something that we need. We need bodies to do that, and if they're ServSafe certified, that means they can safely handle food, and they've got a certification that tells them that. So that's another thing that's happening.
That sounds brilliant. I like this idea of extending it out past that one weekend a year. Really good idea. Really becoming the keto town in America by the sounds of it.
Well, I don't know about that, but certainly one of them in the Northeast, and it's really kind of put our little town on the map. The Thames River Greenery, which is the place that sells wine. They have a cheese shop, a flower shop, cigar humidor. These guys are really great. They said that they did the best day of sales in 20 years. That social Saturday, and they loved the people that came. They talked to them, they were just talking, just about books and things and ideas.
Erudite customers.
Yeah, exactly. They were just astounded by how nice everybody was and how much they really appreciated it.
So you not only brought them customers, but good quality of customers.
That's what they said. That's what they told me.
Yeah. All the restaurants were gobsmacked. They weren't expecting it to be nearly as big as it was, and they were slammed, And then they were lining up this year to be part of it again.
Yep.
Yeah, well, I've got to take your advice on this, because I'm planning a big KKB meetup in a restaurant on the Saturday night. So I've got to decide which restaurant, because it could be a sizable table.
Yeah,
I think.
It could be.
And a very noisy one, too.
And very raucous.
There's one restaurant that not a lot of people went to because we serve pork. We have a pig roast, right? And their thing is, it's called Mambo is the name of the restaurant. And their thing is pernil.
That pernil.
Which is the roasted pork with, roasted pork butt with fatty deposits in it. It's just wonderful.
Sounds good. Sounds like there's loads of delicious places to choose from. Great. Well, talking about the KKBs, I told them I was going to be talking to you two and asked them if they had any questions they'd always wanted to ask you. The first one comes from Karen Ogilvie.
She is truly a KKB.
I was waiting for the look on your faces when I mentioned her name. Now, I think there must be some kind of story behind this question, because it sounds completely innocuous to me. But she said to ask you, what is your favourite way to eat shrimp?
I know Richard's.
I knew it.
This last week in Breckenridge, what I did was I ground up shrimp meat to a very fine puree, a little bit of egg white, a little bit of salt, and something called meat glue. It's actually an enzyme called transglutaminase, and what it does is it binds proteins together. And so you mix up this puree and you extrude it through a pasta maker. Like not one of the rolly pasta makers, but one of the extrudy ones. And you extrude it into water that's 55 Celsius, and it sets up as raw noodles made out of shrimp.
Yeah.
And so for those of us who are ketogenic for 4 years like myself, we haven't had noodles for, shirataki is nice, but it's really just, that's the slimy sort of, the Thai style noodles, but you don't get real sort of pasta style noodles. So al dente pasta style. So these are purely made out of shrimp protein. You cook them in a little bit of butter in a pan. They're fresh noodles, and for the sauce, what you do is you get all the shrimp heads and the shrimp
bodies,
carapaces, the legs, the bodies. and you all the bits that you normally throw away, you put them in a pan, put a little bit of butter or a little bit of oil in that pan, and you cook them down, and then you add a little bit of chicken stock. And then to that, and so basically you end up with like essence of prawn or essence of shrimp. And then you add some cream into that. Yeah. And the sauce that makes is like, well, it really is essence of shrimp.
It's it's wonderful.
It's a shrimp explosion in your mouth.
And so the noodles taste presumably quite shrimpy in themselves as well.
Yeah.
They are shrimp, yeah.
But then with the creamy sauce. Oh.
The only thing we didn't say is if you're going to do this, kids, wear gloves. If you get that on your hands, your fingers won't come apart.
I remember you talking about it in one of your podcasts a long time ago, and you said something about that because the whole point is that it sticks proteins, it binds
like
proteins together, doesn't it?
You don't want to atomize it and breathe it into your lungs because you don't want parts of your lungs to stick together. And what it does is it sets. I know,
sounds a bit dangerous,
but it sets at body temperature. So but once it's set, it's perfectly okay. So you put it in a 55 Celsius pot of water for like 2 minutes, and it's now innocuous. The enzymes have done the job. This is a natural enzyme that we make in our body. So we use it to build protein structures ourselves, and so this is we've just manufactured a bacteria that's able to produce this enzyme for us. But so that's my favourite way to eat shrimp. It's a taste explosion of shrimp in your mouth. It's delicious.
And I suppose also not quite what you'd expect an Australian to say.
No.
Don't throw it on garlic.
Right.
Well, we don't actually do that. That's just Paul Hogan. Paul Hogan does
Is that one of those myths?
It's one of those myths. Paul Hogan does that for the American audience.
Nah. Like Foster's. Nobody drinks that crap in Australia, right?
No.
It's not Australian for beer.
Not. Yeah.
Don't drink it.
But the ads are amusing.
My favorite way to cook shrimp isn't quite as fantastic as Richard's. It's a bit more simple, I'm afraid. It's simply to use real fresh shrimp, not pre-cooked shrimp, of course. Take the tails off and clean them if they're not cleaned, and just simply saute them in butter and garlic and white wine and salt. And, don't overcook them, because the worst thing you can do to a shrimp is cook it, really.
I'm the same. That's how I tend to cook them. I like to take everything off but leave the tails on, so you got something to pick it up
on. Handle.
Yep. That's often a side dish accompanying ribeye at my house.
Surf and turf.
Yep.
Delicious. Well, this is quite a fun one from one of our favourites, Siobhan Huggins. What was the thing that surprised you most after starting the podcast and hosting Keto Fest? And I think I'll throw in starting the forum as well. What surprises have you had along the way?
I'm constantly surprised by just the lack of any negative reporting about the ketogenic diet. I expected to see more people not take to it. More people have problems. I expected to see people having, gout and, whatever, the reverse, the opposite of what normally happens. I just didn't expect it to be so awesome. I mean, I guess I did, because I had that experience myself.
You didn't believe me, did you?
Well, we didn't believe it. We both didn't believe it. You didn't believe it when I got my first blood test. You were nervous.
Right. Yeah, I was.
Yeah.
I was. Geez, what if Carl is this one unique person for whom it doesn't work?
Right.
I was
broke
scared.
Him.
Yeah. What if I broke Carl? Miller will never forgive me. Karen will kick my ass.
You don't want to get your ass kicked by Karen.
So yeah, I'm just constantly surprised at how awesome this therapy is for curing a host of ills.
I'm surprised by the reservoir of goodwill that it creates. And really we went out to people when we first started this saying, look, we've got something we think can cure your diabetes. It reversed our diabetes we're going to try and tell you what we did. We're not going to. We're going to tell you why we think it works. The research we've done to show that. We're not going to tell you what to do. We're just going to tell you what worked for us. But here's the thing: if it works for you, there's a good chance that your family have the same problem that you have. Just maybe your kids have it. It may be a generation younger. Here's the opportunity to basically take what worked for you and help 2 other people. And if everybody fixes themselves, then goes and fixes 2 other people, family, friends, people in your community, loved ones, you name it. If everybody takes care of 2 other people and uses that reservoir of goodwill, that geometric progression is more powerful than changing all of the dietitian associations in the world over to a ketogenic diet. Right. And all of the diabetes organizations in the world, we can yell till we're blue in the face, this works for diabetics, and they will ignore it. But if we change their customers out from underneath them, with the geometric progression, they will have to change. They are going to change like a bull with a ring through the nose because their customers are going to change from underneath them.
Well said.
This reservoir of goodwill is what surprised me, and it really is working. We have heard from so many people who have told their friends and families about what they did, and now they've changed their own lives. So that's the surprise.
Daisy, you mentioned the forums. This is a free website at forum.2keto.com that you can go to and join up. To extend on the goodwill part, we had our own Facebook private group, as you can tell if you go back and listen to older shows, that we talked about it a lot. And it was great up to a point, and then it just became really impossible to deal with. And people don't really understand things about Facebook that we didn't really understand, but the Facebook encourages you not to search for things because search doesn't really work.
It's designed not to work.
Yeah, it's designed not to work. And people therefore don't even look at previous comments before they comment. So if somebody's got a thing and there's like 20 comments or whatever, you only see like the last 2 or 3 comments. And so a point might have been made in comment 1 or 2 that you're going to completely miss. And you think to yourself, what are these idiots talking about? You know, when you have not heard the discussion, you just heard one person's reaction. And then somebody reacts to that and says, no, you're an idiot.
And then all hell breaks loose,
Yeah, and they're mean to each other. And based on the fact that they don't have all the information. And this is what happens when you withhold information from people. You don't allow them to express themselves. They just get angry. And that's what happens. We were playing whack-a-mole with these people, and I was spending so much time on Facebook just answering the same question over and over and over again, and then people get militant about it and they get dogmatic, and it's just not, it doesn't bring out the best in people. It brings out the worst. So that's why we moved it. We gave it a Viking funeral and we moved to this forum where the software is designed by people who understood this problem with Facebook and wanted to have a better way to discuss and have discussions and persist information, right? You can go and search through the ketogenic forums by topic, by keyword, by anything, and you'll find stuff that's been written, years ago. And it's still there.
One of the things I like about it, actually, that the search function does work really well. But if you're accustomed to the Facebook approach where you don't even bother looking and you just type your question in without looking, if you do that on the forum, it'll actually come up with a little message. Is your question looks a lot like this one. Are you sure it hasn't been answered already? And it'll actually point you, won't it, to a few different options that you might think as you're typing your question, actually, I can see someone's asked the exact same thing. I won't bother. I'll just go and look at that thread instead. Yeah,
and now we're up to about 15 or 16,000 members in the forum, and it's not a 2 keto dudes thing, right?
No,
we
didn't
want this to be a brand for us. We just wanted a place where everybody can talk civilly to each other about these things.
And it moderates itself. Must have loads of people at at moderator level by now.
That's what happens. After you answer enough questions, you get more status. It sort of gamifies you. And then you get the ability to moderate and to flag and to...
Sure.
Yeah.
That's one of the most common comments about it, that it's just a really nice place to hang out. There's good information. There's great people to talk to, loads of recipes, all sorts of things.
There's disagreements too, people disagree about stuff and they're curious about things but they don't beat each other up. It's just amazing. It's goodwill.
Act like grown-ups.
Right.
Who knew?
Exactly.
As opposed to acting like grade school.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it is possible. It is possible on Facebook. I don't know what the magic formula is. But I mean, I do have moderators in my group, but to be honest, they don't have anything to do.
No, that's good.
People are just nice to each other.
Maybe you just attract nice people, Daisy.
I don't know what it is, but it can work really well.
Yes. It didn't work for us, but it can work.
We had some 20 admins in the Facebook forum for like 6 to 8 hours a day, which is, volunteers. Ridiculous.
Exactly. It took loads of time, didn't it?
And all you're really doing is just unwinding, the problems with the platform. Because people can't search for things and
and you can't easily point someone to a post that Rich has just done one of his great walls of text, which would be really useful to point the next person who asked the question to, and it's just not that easy to do. Where of course it is on the forum, you can just point them straight to it.
Facebook is designed to obscure anything that you've seen before, because one of the things that the designers of Facebook understood is if they can addict you to novelty, then they can advertise to you and you won't notice the adverts. And so this was one of these things that there's a particular part of the brain called the tegmental area, which is the ventral tegmental area. And it was I did this post about this, and you would think that would be a fairly unique term. I think I posted about that 30 times, and it was impossible to ever search in the forum for that particular term, because once you've seen the post, Facebook no longer shows it to you in a search. So it's designed to throw advertising at you without you noticing it, and that's the thing. Facebook has virtually broken democracy in the United States. So, it's a giant time-sucking vampire. and I find the ketogenic forums to be a remarkable breath of fresh air.
Agreed.
Very true. So Louise Reynolds typically comes out with a funny one. When you go to collect your post or open your letterbox, do you exclaim,
"Yes,
mail"?
Yes, I do.
Do you do that? Do you actually do that in your everyday life? I bet you do.
I do, because Jules and I will, as we're going out for a bike ride, we'll go past the mailbox, and I totally will do mail.
They don't like me shouting recipes in the local restaurants, though. That's where I draw the line. Sorry, sir, you're going to have to be quiet.
This is a serious question from Tamara Jo Palmer, who asked the not so serious question about the arseless chaps. But she wants to know, what do you think would be the best way to approach the male psyche, and specifically to get her hubby on board with keto?
Bacon. Lots of bacon.
Bacon and eggs.
Let's just make bacon and leave it out. And when it's gone, make some more.
Make more bacon.
And just leave it out. Yes. Yeah.
So that's it. Just a constant supply of bacon.
Bacon. Oh, maybe bacon and bourbon.
I would also say get rid of everything that's carby in your house, because that's, if there's no options, but there's bacon on tap all the time, it'll sort itself out.
Yeah, it will, and it'll get old after a while, and then but by that time, hopefully you're a little bit fat adapted, or at least in ketosis for a few days, and you're like, maybe there's something else to eat.
The good thing with men in general, it seems, is that they do tend to react a lot faster to it, especially weight-wise, than women do. So I think they get excited about it a bit sooner.
That's true.
That's true. I think one of the things that that is a problem for men is that most of us don't know how to cook. We've gone certainly when I grew up, in my generation was taught you would go from being fed by your mother to being fed by your wife, and you'll go out to restaurants when you can afford it.
Yeah.
But you won't ever end up cooking. And it wasn't until I guess I was in my 40s when I started cooking. Seriously, I had maybe prior to that I had 3 recipes: spag bowl, spaghetti bolognese.
First thing I learned how to cook spaghetti bolognese.
Actually, the first thing I ever learned to cook was bread and butter pudding. So bread and butter pudding, spag bowl, and tacos from a box. That was pretty much my range prior to about the age of 45. So and now I use meat glue.
Oh, yeah, right. Yeah, what a change, huh, for you? Yeah.
It does make a difference to keto in general, doesn't it? If you like cooking, or even if you say you haven't been used to it. If you get into it.
The thing that's great about cooking ketogenic is you get to use fat. And chefs love that because any chef worth their weight in salt knows that fat makes, butter in particular, makes everything better. It just makes things better. And you want to cook with it because it's almost like an unfair advantage, And so you tell a chef, you should have seen some of the eyes light up when we were talking to these chefs in New London about Keto Fest. Really? I can cook with butter?
I can cook steak in butter?
Butter poached burgers? Really? Yes. Yeah.
Oh, I'd forgotten about your butter poached, but I must try those. They look so nice.
Yeah. Very tender. Yeah.
Well, and this isn't a question. This is just a little comment that I thought was nice to end with from Stephanie Rojas. Please just tell them that they rock. And I love listening to them.
Awesome.
Hi, Stephanie.
Thank you, Stephanie.
Yeah, and you're welcome. And thank you.
There's lots of love for the 2 Keto Dudes.
Oh, shucks.
Well, it's been great talking to you guys. And as you know, I like to round up the show with a top tip. So as there are 2 of you, I get to get 2 top tips, please.
Tips? Wow. Well, like I said, and Richard said, we talk about what works for us. And I found that a really good way to break a stall is to eat pork belly.
Non-stop.
Tasty way too.
Eat it once a day in the afternoon and then don't eat anything after that. I found that for me, if I eat past, 5 o'clock at night, 6 o'clock or whatever, nothing happens for me. But if I stop eating, before that, 3 or 4 o'clock, I just eat once. It doesn't have to be pork belly. I'm just saying, eat a ketogenic meal once a day and lay on the fat until you can't, stand it anymore.
Until you cry uncle.
Until you cry uncle. And that works for me. I can't tell you what will work for you, but, that's the way forward for me when I'm stalling.
It's a great tip, actually. It's certainly something that I need to tackle is, snacking in general, but definitely eating too late at night.
I've done it all my life.
It does make a difference.
And that's probably a big part of my problem.
It's a little bit like Daisy will know this reference to cricket, but I guess Carl in America, maybe the baseball, when the game gets boring. Well, cricket's got more of a chance of getting boring because it lasts for 5 days. And most times there's no result. And when the game and there's only 20 wickets in the entire thing. Anyway, there's a lot of opportunity to become boring. Somebody will always blow up a beach ball, and then everyone tries to keep the beach ball aloft, and they're basically poking the beach ball up in the air. That's really what you're doing when you're snacking all day. You're just poking your insulin up in the air over and over again. And if you were to average how much insulin you have during the day, if you keep poking it up in the air, it will be a high average number. And insulin tells your fat cells it's time to store energy. So if your fat cells all the day are responding to the command to store energy, that's what a stall is.
Yeah.
Exactly. And just fat storage mode all the time.
Yeah.
Exactly what you don't want.
Exactly what you don't want. Yeah. So eat when you eat, fast when you fast.
Yeah.
That's probably my best tip, and I got it from Megan Ramos.
Yep.
Fast properly and feast properly.
Me too. And my tip comes right from her as well. So hats off to Megan.
Hats off to Megan.
Top tips via Megan. Yeah.
And we'll see you at Keto Fest.
Well, brilliant. Thank you so much. I've really enjoyed it. Tables being turned.
Thank you, Daisy.
Hosting the two super cool keto dudes.
Well, thank you. And thank you for your podcast. It's amazing. And I continue to follow it and watch and see all the great kudos you're getting, and your guests are amazing.
It's really charming. It's a charming podcast, and it's unique in amongst the keto space, and we're very grateful that you're doing it.
Definitely. Thanks, Daisy.
Well, thank you. Thanks to you too. To get the resources and links from the show, please go to ketowomanpodcast.com. Are you my next extraordinary woman? Maybe you've got an idea for a show, a topic you want to hear about. Let me know how I can tickle your earbuds by dropping me a line at daisy@ketowomanpodcast.com. If you fancy joining me on this exciting adventure and want to help me create new episodes, please go to my Patreon page at patreon.com/ketowoman, or simply hit the support button on the Keto Woman podcast website. It's thanks to the two keto dudes that I'm hosting this podcast, so please consider heading to their Patreon page at patreon.2keto.com and help them bring you more podcasts like this one. Please help other people hear about and find this podcast by reviewing the show on iTunes and Facebook. Every star and review really does help. It doesn't go unnoticed by me, the people who regularly like, share and comment on my posts. Your support means the world to me. Thank you. This week's quote is from none other than Carl Franklin. Conferences are for professionals. Festivals are for people. Bye-bye, Keto Lovelies.